started.
Excellent.
So first of all, good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for Accelerate or Hesitate, Leading Innovation in Uncertain Times. First, it goes without saying, let me say, we hope your families, your employees, your colleagues are all healthy and safe amid this epic worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. Over the last weeks, we've heard from personal accounts of businesses that are trying to find ways, new ways, brand new ways they never thought about to forge forward. And, you know, the ways in which they need to do so have been just unimagined in years past. Today, from their own homes, we are joined by Gary Covert, founder of Gary Covert Consulting, and Bala Balasubramaniam, founder of Innovation Minds. Gary empowers leaders with tools to develop exceptional talent, keep strategic focus, and innovate continuously without burning out. He has advised and coached leaders from a very diverse range of industries, including logistics, technology, global hospitality, healthcare, restaurants, financial services, construction, mining, energy, among others. So as you can tell, it's quite a plethora of diverse background that he's bringing to this conversation for all of us. Bala is an author, an avid blogger, and frequently gives keynotes at summits and conferences, focusing on innovation, as well as HR, strategy, digital transformation. Again, several topics very relevant and topical to what we're dealing with today. He's championed corporate innovation programs and initiatives for eBay, PayPal, and LinkedIn, among others. He has founded Innovation Minds several years ago, which provides a socially engaging innovation management platform to optimize talent, first of all, and also the exclusive Six Thorns framework to nurture creator culture and enterprises within enterprises and institutions. So before we begin, and I ask the panelists, Gary and Bala, to share their wealth of information with us, I have a quick request to the audience, if I may. Please feel free to pop open the Q&A pane. And as we are going through, if you have any questions that pop up, go ahead and type them in the pane. We have allotted some time at the end for Gary and Bala to answer as many as possible in a Q&A session. And there may be some opportunities in between to answer one or two along the way. So without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Welcome, Gary. Welcome, Bala.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining this morning. The topics on so many minds, as you know, is finding new solutions to business challenges, including, among other things, how should leaders approach innovation when times are uncertain and they're faced with, especially now, a remote and dispersed workforce. Bala, I'd like to ask you first, in that regard, why should we and how can we continue to focus on innovation during uncertain times and when everything is remote in epic proportions? And additionally, when all goes back to normal, as we certainly hope and know it will, how can we then seamlessly carry through on the momentum?
Beautiful. Thanks for having me, Debbie, and nice to meeting you, Gary, and all the participants. Hopefully everyone is doing fine. Even before getting into the topic, please take care and stay safe. And by the way, Debbie, your introduction is much more awesome. Maybe I have to record your introduction and then start stealing some of your punchline. That's beautiful, yeah.
Sure, I'll send it to you. Little research.
Definitely, okay. So let me just go ahead and then share my simple deck. Again, I'll promise the audience that I'm not going to do PowerPoint by death. It's more like a conversation here. So hopefully you're able to see my deck here. Let's start off with a small mind game here. Take a moment look at the graphics I have showed here. It's all 3 dots, top to bottom, and then left to right, right? So there is a small exercise for you all while we are talking about all these great topics related to innovation and how we'll be able to really overcome and champion this transformation, especially during these challenging times. Just keep thinking about it. Maybe at the end, we will be finally able to get to the answer. So question to you all, or challenge to you all, is that can you connect all the dots using 4 straight lines without removing your pencil from the paper? So connect all the dots, only 4 straight lines, and you shouldn't take your pencil from the paper. I know that we are all not sitting with a piece of paper or pencil, but just try to do it in a visually or mentally. We will come back to that. Okay, so with that, let's go to the main topic here. So take a moment and then actually try to see what comes to your mind when you're looking at these brands. For example, Uber, Airbnb, Instagram, WhatsApp. So I given few set of known brands, right? If you take a moment and then think of it, the very first thing comes to our mind is that these are all unicorns. These are all very successful companies. But beyond that, there is another connecting tissue between all these brands, which is bingo. So all these brands, all these successful companies were formed right after the 2008 recession. You know why actually they were able to form all these successful and also very powerful, impactful company? The reason for that is the creativity, the innovation comes from the constraint. When you've been working with some processes for 20 years, maybe 15 years, you've been using the tools for last decade, and then suddenly you're putting into a challenging time, and you're going to be uncovering that, oh my God, I thought this is going to be saving my life. This process, this tool, this technology is really killing me. It's not working. So that is where you're going to be really pushed to the corner and then start thinking about, is there any better way for doing the things? So my point here is that the creativity comes from the constraint. So with that one, usually there is a notion or kind of the trap that we all may get in, oh, these are all the challenging times and we may get into recession. Can you put a pause button on innovation? So I would strongly, strongly advise you that this is not the time for pausing the innovation. Actually, you have to double it because history speaks to itself. Are you with me so far? Good. So we've been talking about innovation is a key and we have to double down, right? But when you look at the reality, these are all the different times and we have to take different measures. When you do that, it also brings in different sources of innovation, different sources of opportunities. So let's actually try to do 1 or 2 things here. And as you can know, Innovation Minds not only providing the innovation management platform for the enterprise and academia clients, we are also having the full-blown survey management tool that's being used by many enterprise clients. So using the platform, we have reached out to our clients and then asked 4 questions, especially during these challenging times. The first one is, what do you miss not being at the workplace? And the second one that we asked is, are your remote meetings work out well? Because everybody is on their pajamas and trying to log into the meetings, whereas in the traditional context setup, people go to the conference room or meeting room, so it's a little different or completely different context, right? Question is, meetings work out well? And then the third one that we have asked is, are you still feeling connected, especially when you're working from home or remote? In terms of getting the update for your projects and work, do you still feel like you are in the driving seat? And then the last question that we asked our participant is that, it's okay, it's a bad time, a challenging time, and eventually there is going to be a light at the tunnel. We are going to be coming out as victorious. But with all this pandemic, are there any bright side you're seeing in these challenging times? So these are all the 4 questions we have asked our client participants. And again, actually the sample size is really high. And let's go one by one. Maybe we'll start with the first one. What do you miss not being at your workplace? So when you just look at it here, it's a little surprising to hear that people are talking about, hey, you know what? When I'm not in office, I'm missing my water cooler, team lunches, coffee breaks. So there is a kind of social fabric behind that one, right? And then when you just look at it, okay, so you're missing all those things. How are you really overcoming it? So is there any innovative processes, technologies you're using? So there are many things that they are talking about, and especially these 2 really stood out, Zoom and Trello. And by the way, we are not really speaking for any brand here. This is based on our survey results, so we're not attesting or testimonial or anything else. It's more like a fact finding, and then we would like to share it with our audience. And then when you go to the second one, are your remote meetings work out well? Yeah, they're saying that mostly, but where are my post-it notes, whiteboards? You see this quite often, right? Sometimes actually the meeting participant or whoever are championing or coordinating the meeting tend to go to the whiteboard, try to start drawing, so visually they can convey everything. So where are my post-its and whiteboards? And when we asked, how are you solving it? Of course, there are some tools and technologies, processes. Have you thought about Mural? Have you thought about Jira? So these are all some kind of good tools, but I would say that you have to go and do your own shopping and then try to find out what is working for your culture, what's going to be working for your team. So the third one is, do you feel connected with your work? And then the answer we got is that, yeah, we are getting that weekly status, daily update, but you know what? The main piece that I'm missing, which is really, really informative, is that the impromptu moments. When I just cross someone in the hallway, hey, I'm working on this one, I'm getting stuck here, or I need help here. So that sort of continuous loop is what actually being missed, especially when I'm sitting here. And then again, as usual, we ask the question like, how are you solving it? So the question here is, so many of the companies now started using this collaborative tool. Teams or Slack, they are beautiful in terms of synchronous communication, asynchronous communication. So it is working out well. So you go and find your magic solution. And then the last one, any bright side beyond the carnage of this pandemic? And the answer that we have got is, beyond all those other things, pretty much everybody is fascinated to share the feedback that, hey, you know what, now I'm getting to know my colleagues really well, who this person is, who this person as a father, or actually as a family head. As even actually leaving aside my boss or my colleague or he or she is reporting to me, I'm really, really getting to know who this person is. So it's such a wonderful experience, and this is going to go a long way when we are all coming back. So again, as you can see here, these are different times and different measures. And when you look at it, people are not going to be really constrained by, okay, I'm missing out all these things and then sitting there idle. They're just trying to go and find out how I will be able to overcome these challenges. So this is what I was telling earlier, like the constraints is going to be fueling the creativity and innovation. And any of the participants here or whoever is going to be watching our webinar later, if you are seeing any constraints, go and conquer it, because there are so many opportunities out there. And then I'll just conclude it with this particular quick rundown here. As you know, we've been working with many clients' innovation teams. So you're asking like, hey, these are all the challenging times. Even it could be very challenging for the critical projects, but when you're working on the innovation team, is it business as usual or how things are getting done on your team? So in terms of collecting the challenges, and also in terms of forming your teams and also collaborating on the ideas, I'm talking about the innovation teams. And then we ask them that, so once actually the challenges have been discussed and the teams are formed and they're working on this innovation, are you able to still move forward and identify the bright spot for you to move forward? And then finally, okay, so they discuss the challenges, come up with the idea, form the team, and they were able to build the prototype, everything. So how we are providing the platform for them to come and pitch and also walk away as the winner, so they'll be able to build those ideas into products. So as you can see here, these are the typical 4 pillars when it comes to any innovation journey, right? So our question to our audience was that these are all the challenging times and pretty much everybody is remote and a lot of changed priorities. Despite all those odds, how the innovation program is working, are you able to still move forward with all those things? That is our question. And then it is pretty surprising how many of our clients are so innovative, creative, again, challenging the constraint and converting those into opportunities. For example, collecting the challenges. So I've seen like 2 or 3 clients form up something like virtual coffee time. So virtual coffee time in the sense, either be weekly or bi-weekly, they are setting up some time for everybody to come together, have a coffee or tea or something else, and then try to just go over, oh, what are the challenges you're seeing, especially when you're working remote. So that is one of the best practice that we are seeing. I wouldn't say best practice, more like a very creative process. If it is working for many clients, why don't you try it yourself? And the second thing is, one, are you able to form your team and collaborate on your ideas? How are you able to do it, especially when you're sitting from home? Again, we got a beautiful idea from one of our client on the East Coast that, hey, we have something called On Your Pajamas. We want to really make everybody feel like natural, organic, come to one place and then be relaxed and on your pajamas. Let's go on with the problem statement. So I'm just sharing some of the kind of interesting things that we are seeing among the clients. And as you can see here, the next question was like, okay, so you got all the ideas and teams are getting formed and they're going to be working on it. How are you going to identify all these ideas, especially when you have to bring in the leadership team for vetting and reviewing all those ideas? And we got the answer. The best answer was that the power lunch. So they're actually bringing in the stakeholders on a particular day and then sharing all those ideas while they're having lunch from their living room or kitchen, and they're going to go through that one. And finally, okay, so you have identified the challenges, team is working on all the ideas, and now you're able to pick the best of the best, and it is time for showcasing, right? So how you are able to do all those things, and that's where one of the bright idea that we have received from our client is that beer and pitch. So it's, again, it goes back to the same kind of social connection and informal and organic natural setup, right? So it is pretty interesting, exciting to see how people are turning these challenges into the opportunities. And by the way, a little infomercial here. As you know, we are actually having the Innovation Minds platform, and it will be able to beautifully support all the things that we are talking about here. Just in case anybody interested on our premium, you can reach out to us later. Good.
Great.
So with that, let me just conclude it. So earlier I posed the question, can you connect all the dots using 4 straight lines without removing a pencil? So I don't know, Debbie, you will be able to get any answer from the participants, or maybe just I can go and share it.
I think best let's go ahead and share in the essence of time.
Beautiful. So as you can see here, we are not really taking the pencil out of the paper, and with 4 straight lines, we are able to connect all the dots. So my concluding note here is that, folks, we are living in a challenging time. So innovation is really, really important than any other context or any other times. But 2 or 3 things that we should really, really keep in mind, not only during these challenging times, when we go back to work, make sure that whatever the ideas that you're trying to come up with is connecting the dots with your organization goals, and also whatever the solution that you're looking for should be able to connect the dots with the challenges. So from all around, the innovation should be able to connect the dots and also bring in the alignment. And the second thing is, it's literally talking about outside the box, right? So people usually talk about innovation as cliche, and you should start thinking out of the box or outside the box. Here you go. So when you're approaching the problem, when you come back to work, or even when you're working on it now, make sure that you're really taking a step back and then actually thinking outside the box. Don't get bound by what you have been working on for the last 10 years, 20 years. That is the same way you should continue to work. No, that's
Yes.
going to completely fail you. So take a step back and then try to think outside the box. Connect
Great.
all the dots and think outside the box. So with that, let me just hand it over to Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you, Bala. That was very informative. I especially like the empirical examples, seeing the what does happen, what can happen in challenging times is usually, again, thinking creatively in ways that maybe we don't when we're inside the walls of our building or our cubicle. Okay, excellent. So again, thank you for your questions. We will address those toward the end of the conversation. So keep entering questions if you would. So now let me turn this over to Gary. And Gary, if you take us, I guess, a bit deeper into some of the specifics around addressing key areas on leadership and culture, I think that would be the next perfect segue.
Sure, happy to do that. Let me get over and share. Get up here. Bear with me.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So yeah, Bala, what I really took away from your key points there is just how much the social aspects and how much innovation is happening within the process and reducing the barriers. And that's really some interesting things to see what leaders are doing. So as I reflected for this webinar, what stood out for me is really three things that I think are key and essential and maybe under a little pressure in terms of innovating effectively and making sure that organizations are doing absolutely everything that they can to do to get through this period of time, but also and come out stronger on the other side. And there's three key things that are really coming to the forefront with the leaders that I'm talking to. One is we need to maintain this very strong leader mindset. We need to address and perhaps readdress organizational beliefs. And we need to be very disciplined about structure in the process, so structure and discipline. Let me give you a few thoughts about that. So I've been talking to a ton of leaders. I've really tried to have a habit and reach out to leaders and see how they're doing, just to see what's going on and keep in touch with them. And I've got to say, I'm really encouraged by the resiliency that I see with so many out there. And the ones that seem to be doing the best and keeping the most momentum seem to have some of these good mindsets. I'll give you a couple examples. One is, I have the courage to win. Well, not just win, but the courage to win again. So like you said before, a lot of the paradigms, the ways of doing things, the processes from 10 and 15 years ago that helped us to win then may not be applicable now. So the ones that are really in the right headspace have that courage to win again. They're rethinking and reconfiguring what they need to do. And they've been successful in the past, but they're thinking about ways how to reseed and generate great ideas so that they can win again. The other mindset that I see is especially great is this embracing of, this is our time for unprecedented innovation. So we keep hearing the phrase, this is unprecedented times, but the ones that really seem to have good momentum right now are embracing it, that this is our time. So this is a great opportunity. So yes, this has been shaken up. Yes, this is a very tough and serious opportunity, conditions, but this is our time. And it also speaks to their looking internally within their organization and saying, hey, these are some, I have everything I need to succeed, like right here within my organization, even if it's dispersed. A third point would be, we are never too busy to raise the bar. So the ones that I've been tracking and maintaining momentum, they're still taking time out to make sure, and like some of your clients, maybe they're doing a lot of these social things, whether it's in their pajamas or with parties or coffee, which all sounds really wonderful to me, or with beer. They're taking this time out intentionally to raise the bar. So they still got that mindset. And then lastly, I don't have to do this alone. We're all been told shelter in place, but that doesn't mean we need to shelter our brains in place. So luckily, a lot of people innovated a lot in advance of all this. So we've got all great tools like this so that we can do this. So leaders don't feel like they have to, the best leaders don't feel like they have to just do this all on their own. We have all these different tools out there that we can tap into the mindset of all of our and wisdom within our teams and get there. So key point one here is the leader mindset. So I would encourage you as a leader, ask yourself a question. The question is, to what degree do I have and am I maintaining the proper mindset? And to what extent are the leaders around me and my key leaders, do they have the right mindset? Because we need to keep this refreshed and strong. In boxing, they have the tactic is when all the flurries come, all the punches come, is that it's cover and counter. It's not just cover and cover. You need to cover and counter. So you got to keep that mindset going to be able to hit back again. So next point would be beliefs. We need to be very vigilant about beliefs. And now Peter Drucker talks about, and aptly so, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. But what can really take a bite out of culture are beliefs, because culture is a set of common beliefs that influence behavior. So we need to be very careful about the beliefs that that we have within our culture, within our organizations, because they will drive the kinds of behaviors that you see. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So these are some beliefs, some that might have been prevalent before this crisis, some that might still be going, and some that might actually be worsening. But here's the normal cast of characters. You'll see that my boss doesn't care. It's just about technology. Who am I? I'm not creative. My opinions don't count. Not my job. My ideas never go anywhere anyway. If I come up with the idea, all I get is just a bunch of work. It might be risky for me to innovate. This is actually a big one right now. People might be thinking, if I innovate, my job is tenuous already. Does that make my career, my job, my financial condition even more tenuous? Beliefs like that will negatively impact your innovation results. Another couple would be, and this is probably less prevalent this month than it was last month, but we're too good. We're to be disruptive. That's having too high an opinion of ourselves. So I think there's been a cold bath here, a stark reminder of just how easily we can be disrupted. So a lot of organizations are struggling with that. But it might be helpful in kind of shifting that particular mindset. But here's one that's also, I think, can still be damaging, is that we're just a supplier. We think too little of ourselves. We're just a supplier. We're just a contractor. We're just too small. Things like that. We have too low an opinion of ourselves, or we're just in this kind of function that supports the organization, but we're not in the core group, something like that. Or we're just a nonprofit. Whatever it is that diminishes the thought process in terms of innovation. So you need to be thinking about that as a leader. And then the last point is that we can innovate without collaborating with other groups. Maybe because of the issues that are around communication, there's probably a lot, I see some granularity. Teams are having to coalesce and be very intentional to get close with one another. But let us not forget that we also need to be reaching out across and maintaining all those other relationships, because that's how we're really going to get collaboration or get innovations, by going across the organization. So the question here is, and these are just some examples. Everybody's organization is a little bit different. Everybody's context is a little bit different, but every leader needs to be thinking about, to what extent are beliefs potentially negatively impacting my processes that I want for innovation. Or there's some things that my team is thinking, that the organization is thinking, that I need to proactively address, because if they're not addressed, it's going to be an issue. The third point talks to Bala's point, and it's about structure. So we all know that to be really effective innovators, we need to have openness to ideas, as well as having some effective structure. So if we have good openness to ideas, but not much kind of structure, you know, we'll be in this zone of what I call this kind of free spirit zone. Oh, we've got lots of great ideas, but they never come to fruition. On the flip side, if you have a lot of structure, a lot of bureaucracy to get ideas moved forward, and there's not that much openness, then the structure itself can squelch the ideas. So we need to be high and to the right, a little bit of both in order to apply our creativity. The thing that I'm saying right now is that the typical structures that are in place, had been in place, are frayed a bit. So I think the current environment for a lot of organizations is forcing them to be even more open to ideas. So that's come about because of the imperative of the times. But on the flip side, maybe the structures are there, are less appropriate, or less in place, I guess. And so that can be a detriment to our innovation efforts. So that's the thoughts there. And the question there is, to what extent is the current structures and tools that I normally rely on, or that I would want to have in place, actually working? So if we have those three things in place, I think we'll be effective. So that structure can be very simple, or it can be very complicated, but at least, you know, if from the very smallest team, should be able to go through this creating ideas, ideation, to screening, to creating opportunities, to planning and implementing all these different things. So we need to have a structure in place, even when we're at a distance. And you can do that through, luckily, through a lot of these tools that are currently available through simple collaboration. So in summary, I give 8 points based on the leaders that I've been talking to and the kind of conditions that they've been working through. Is 1, start at the top, but don't stop there. I talked about the leader mindset. So start there, but don't stop there. You got to go deep within the organization. So if you're committed, that's great, but we got to go deep within the organization. The people that are closer to the issues are more likely to have the solutions. So go deep, use all those processes to get there. The other is go wide. We need to make sure we've got innovation wide within organizations. So with some of the companies I see, there's some naturally synergistic groups that should be working together. For example, in energy, there's great synergy between field operations and engineering. I often call this boots and books, because they've got the engineering smarts, but you got the field know-how. You put those two together, you've really got something. So insist on and really kind of make sure those groups are collaborating and not just doing the day-to-day work, but are they collaborating to really raise the bar? We talked about point number 3. Point 4 would be equip everyone how to screen ideas in and develop ideas. You know, what's happening now is probably a lot of people are coming to their supervisors with ideas. But if the supervisor is not well trained, what can happen is that they'll fumble away that opportunity. Now, if it's a great idea and they fumble it, they lost a bad idea. It wasn't such a great idea and they didn't handle the conversation well, and they fumbled it, then they still fumbled the opportunity. So what can happen is people will stop coming to them with ideas. They'll think that we're not in the market for good ideas. So we need to make sure that even though the intent up top is very strong, we need to make sure that that middle layer is also well equipped to handle this, so that those conversations are handled and people, even if their idea isn't picked up, feel good about the process. 5th point is, let's look for some base hits and scoring runs, not just the breakthroughs. Of course, we want to innovate and get the biggest bang for our buck that we can. But in these times, people need to see some tangible progress. They need to see some momentum. So even within your own team, look for some quick wins, some ways to get on the board, easy things that you can do. that you can go forward with. And then 6th point is get strategic. Don't just think about optimizing yesterday. So what a lot of my clients are doing right now, and I'd strongly suggest it, is to do a strategic refresh. So look at where your strategy is today. Where do I want to be in the next 18 to 24 months? And figure out what are those key drivers, the key 3 or 4 drivers that are going to get me there. Because what your strategy and objectives were a month ago are likely vastly different today. So going through that exercise will help leaders be very good at focusing where their innovation efforts are going to be. 7, don't just say it, show it. I think people need some optimism. They need to see that things are not just doom and gloom outside in the world and within their organization. So we're making progress. Just don't assume that everybody knows about it. Be very diligent about communicating that out. And then last point, structure this time for some innovation cycles. So people seem to be in the market for ideas, but let's continue to have structure, not just in the process, but in time. So what can we innovate within the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, what makes sense for you and your organization, but put some time constraints on it so that people are focused and attentive and you can see progress within a discrete amount of time. So Bala, why don't you come back in? But basically what I summarized, what we've got here is I've got some points on the right. Bala, from his perspective, has some points on the left. But I would encourage all leaders to take some time and analyze, where are you today? Where are you in terms of your leadership mindset? Where are you in terms of your beliefs? Where are you in terms of structure and discipline? Bala had a lot of good ideas about the tools and networks. What are some current sources? Are you using all your current sources of information to innovate well? And are you doing it with some alacrity? Are you doubling down or are you hunkering down? Are you doing it with some speed, or is it just too slow? So some areas are probably working for you better than others, but certainly some might need some good attention right now.
Cool. I think actually pretty much everything is spot on, Gary. Especially I liked your 2 points, thinking too high and thinking too low. It kind of really stuck with me. Since we have been working with so many clients, we are seeing in the beginning either they are getting trapped onto that extreme side of high or low. So it's pretty spot on. So pretty much everything that you're talking about is spot on, and especially those 2 things. It is really, really an issue if they are going to be on the starting of that innovation curve, especially. The more and more they are getting marching towards that apex, they may be able to figure it out. But if they are venturing into this innovation, that's a usual trap, I would say.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Beautiful.
Great. Thank you so much. So, Gary, I really enjoyed your presentation. One topic that really stuck with me was from your beliefs list, from that slide. We like to say, some of you have already heard me say this a number of times, top-down innovation, bottom-up. Top-down objectives, bottom-up innovation. And innovation programs we've seen produce best overall results with our client organizations, have really mobilized the talent and fueled the engagement that they were working on through other means. So I really enjoyed observing those points, especially that.
Great.
Excellent. So thank you so much again. Now I'd like to take a look at some questions. I've got questions in the pane that are starting to come up. And I will, if it's okay with you gentlemen, I will go ahead and read the questions, and we'll take some time. And then if y'all stick around, there's some goodies we have for you for attending today. And I think you'll enjoy that. And but let's take a few minutes first to take a look at some questions. So first, let's talk about one question here is, I lead a nonprofit and our funding has dried up. Our teams are at home and some will be furloughed. I know we should be innovating, but it seems like a lot to ask right now. Should I wait?
I'll give my impression on it, and because I think I know what Bala will say. No, don't wait. But I think we need to be very empathetic right now. So we need to be empathetic to the circumstances that people are going through. These are unprecedented. People are scared for their personal safety. People are scared for their jobs. And people may be very strained. They're taking care of people. So I think we need to be very empathetic, and not just to be empathetic, but show empathy. So often the leaders I work with, they feel it here, but sometimes they need to be pretty clear that they're actually that's how they feel. So they're communicating that empathy. So that having been said, no, this is actually a great time to keep going, because your team needs something positive to focus on. And well, it's an imperative for your organization. It sounds like, your funding has dried up. So it's important for you to actually make some moves, but do so with the empathy. But you can't let that slow you down. It sounds like you're in an existential position. So that's what leaders do. They need to take some decisive action, but I'd say with empathy.
Terrific.
Beautiful. Maybe I can also add on to what Gary was mentioning. See, even though we are in the challenging times, we are also blessed to have so many innovations happened prior to these challenging times, especially when you look at the technology side. Pretty much you'll be able to go and find the premium in each and every one of the use case that you're talking about, whether you want to do the collaboration, you want to do the visual communication, or you want to actually have that asynchronous communication with your team. So for each and every one of these things, you don't have to really think about cutting a fat check or big check, especially you being the nonprofit. When you're coming forward like, hey, this is my cost, this is what I would like to try to do. All the companies are going to be really empathizing with you, and then either they are going to be opening up their premium tools, or even if it is going to be the licensed one. During these hard times, what we are seeing based on our own experience is that people are really, really going above and beyond to help all those things. So never ever stop thinking of the innovation. I would say this is the time you should double down, but don't get kind of discouraged by, oh my God, I'm going to spending money, especially when I'm following every one of the employee, where I'm going to be finding the money. Let's not think about that. Spell it out and share your costs and share your problem. People are there to help you out. And
Great.
just in case you need a specific use case or help, you can directly reach out to either Gary or Debbie or myself. We should be able to connect the dots for you. It's on us, okay?
Great. Okay. So thank you for those answers. I do have several questions. So if we could offer a brief and concise response, and we can always follow up with the respondents that I think that'll help us to get through more, but I like all the detail, of course. So let's answer a question from Reese. Actually, Reese asked two questions. Are there any good off-the-shelf innovation vetting platforms? And we'll have to determine what she means by vetting, or he means from vetting platforms. If not, do you recommend any particular software? And then Reese also asks on a question about any tips on how to measure innovation, for example, quantification of waste eliminated / prevented.
Beautiful. So maybe Gary, I'll take this one and then you can also chime in.
Yep.
Again, there is a bit of conflict here. At the same time, I just want to be transparent. I'm the CEO of Innovation Minds, and then we are providing this comprehensive innovation management platform, right? So I'm just referring it because we are also having that freemium. So we are not always focusing on the revenue. Just in case we want to have it or take a look at it, we should be willing to go and share it. On top of it, there are also few other tools I can just think of, Bright Idea or Spigot, and then Q Market. There are some solutions out there. So I would say you got a lot of options, but end of the day, you have to really see what you're trying to accomplish and what is your success criteria. End of the day, you have to make sure that what is going to be making you the hero within your community, and also how your program is going to be successful. So based on all those criteria, try to start vetting those options. So have the clarity on what you want to accomplish, what is going to make you successful, and you want to be the hero among your community. Your program has to be successful, and you should be able to start creating the impact on one side, and the other side options available in the market, map it, and then see what is going to be really making you to be successful. So that is really key, I would say. Gary?
Yeah, I would say, just to follow up on that point briefly, is software is one piece of the puzzle, tools, one piece of the puzzle. The other key part is what are the leaders doing? So for example, if just having a sales force doesn't necessarily mean you're going to sell a lot. Just having a quality software doesn't mean you're going to push out quality products. You got to have that human element. So it's not just the solution, it's the leadership that goes along with it. I think it's essential.
Great. And tips on how to measure innovation, for example, quantification of waste eliminated and prevented.
Oh, beautiful. Maybe I'll also add this one, Gary, and then you can just share your perspective. So what we are seeing among our clients is that they tend to measure the success of any innovation program campaign in terms of 2 or 3 stages. Very first, when you're actually embarking on this journey, right away you'll not be able to expect that people are going to come up with $1 billion idea. In 3 months, you're going to start getting the revenue. That's not going to be the realistic expectation for this one, right? So what our clients are doing is first they want to measure, are we able to create the excitement? Are we able to jazz up the community? How they are actually willing to come forward organically, naturally, and be part of this program rather than CEO keeps on nagging those folks like, you should spend some time on the innovation program. The excitement part. Make sure that your program, your campaign, whatever that you're doing from the innovation side is really exciting your community. And they start seeing like, hey, there is something in for me. I want to be part of it. It should come organically, naturally. How do you measure those excitement? And then the second step, what we are seeing with our clients is that they just go to the next step, like effectiveness. Okay, I'm actually seeing that excitement now. And then, the engagement is the second one. So how do you convert those excitement into the continuous involvement contribution towards this program? So second one, we usually call it as engagement. And the third one is actually the impact being created by these efforts and the program in terms of number of ideas getting submitted and the conversion ratio, how many ideas are getting into the real world, and what is the revenue and all those things. So if you're able to have the right expectation and measure it in the right logical order, the excitement part, engagement, and the effectiveness, you'll be able to sell the story very easily towards your stakeholders. End of the day, set the right expectation and march towards, and something is not working, do the course correction. You will be able to go and show it, and you be the winner and program be the winner, and you'll be able to create much more impact than you have thought of. Gary?
Yeah, I love that because you're talking about measurements to the process, which I think is really important because there's going to be a lot of intangibles that will not have come to fruition yet. So innovation, in my mind, to a large extent, is planting seeds for the future. So don't get caught too much in the trap of, oh, did we see results from my innovation program this week? Well, it might just build in resilience for the future. So that's a benefit. It's hard to quantify, but if you can see people participating in it and you can see real, real activity, then yeah, that's very beneficial. So don't just put ROI just based on revenue or savings. You know, those are important, but also capacity and other benefits, because those are intangibles but critical.
Great. So we have, if we are able to answer this last question quickly, since we have a wrap up to do and only 5 more minutes left on our timeline here, is there a unique or provocative new growth strategy, Brian asks, or story you've seen emerge as a result of the current disruption?
Yeah.
Bala, you can take that.
May not be quick, but unfortunately, we've got a couple more things in the goodies I've promised the
No,
attendees.
I'll just actually very
Good.
quickly talk
Make it
about it.
snappy.
So, is this coming from Brian or who is the
This is
questioner?
coming from Brian.
Brian. Hey, Brian. I think this is really a thought-provoking question. You're making us to really think about it. But fortunately, as I was mentioning earlier, the constraints are kind of fueling the creativity, right? So whatever the example that I was talking about earlier, whether it's going to be beer and page on your pajamas or virtual coffee time. So all these kind of things are coming out of the necessity. Now you're asking everybody to work from home, and especially you being a leader, you feel like you're not in the driving seat anymore with all these constraints, who is doing what. There are always opportunities. That's where actually people are coming up with this kind of innovative thought process of not pushing any of these processes or mandating any of the processes, but how do we make it more organic, natural? And
Right.
as you know, innovation is always kind of fun and excitement. It should come from within, right? So rather than somebody is asking you to do. So I would always say that clients should focus on that aspect, like start answering the question like, what is in it for the employee? What is in it for the manager? What is in it for the stakeholder? If our program is able to solve or answer those questions and make it much more organic, people are going to be really successful. On those lines only, we are hearing all these beautiful processes, concepts, tools, beer and page, or on your pajamas, virtual coffee chart. These are all great things that we are seeing there.
Thank you so much. So sorry to cut you off, Gary.
No
I'm
worries.
sure you had thoughts. I need
You're on
to
a time
go
clock,
to
yeah.
the slides.
Yep.
If Gary, you can go ahead and share that deck one more time. I've got a couple of things to show our audience. And first of all, thank you so much for your questions. I know that there are some we didn't have the opportunity to answer, but we'll do our best to answer directly if possible. So yeah, so because you joined us today, there's a couple of goodies that we'd like to offer to you. One is one of the platforms Innovation Minds offers, in addition to the world-class innovation management platform, is the 360 assessment platform. This is an opportunity to gauge your innovation maturity as an organization and your innovation strengths and opportunities. So with regards to that, we'll be sharing, if you're interested in giving that a whirl or taking a look at that, we'll share credentials with you because it is specific to your organization, and you can use that one complimentary use for however you see fit. And then secondly, Gary has been very gracious to offer a number of complimentary ebooks that ebook to participants today. Again, the attendees will receive Ridiculously Innovative. It is available to you if you would like it in electronic form, and you just need to email Gary at the email address that we will share here, as well as in a follow-up message. By all means, let us know. All right, so let's get on to the next one. The next slide is just the last and final contact information. And most importantly, I want to thank our panelists, Bala Balasubramaniam, founder and CTO of Innovation Minds, and Gary Covert, the founder of Gary Covert Consulting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
We have just a moment before we're actually at time right off the bat. So if you have a concluding thought, maybe if we can keep it brief, I'd love to give you that opportunity.
Maybe I'll just go with that. So very quickly, stay safe and take care, but never stop innovating. This is the time you should double down.
Yeah, keep on going. That would be my word of encouragement. People are looking at you as a leader. Do your very best. Keep your mindset great, and keep going. Don't stop.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Again, thank you, everyone. We had a great participation today. Excellent questions. Thank you again so much for your time, and I hope you all remain well.
Thank you
Bye-bye
all.
now.
Take care.